Большое спасибо. Да, времени совсем немного. К сожалению, доклад был рассчитан на полчаса, у нас осталось 5 минут. Поэтому вы действительно можете, как Алексей сказал, ознакомиться с самим докладом в течение всего дня. Он есть также в электронном виде, в печатном виде он лежит за вами в зале или на стойке регистрации. Несколько вещей, о которых хотелось бы все же, наверное, упомянуть, чтобы вы там с правильным осознанием вошли в чтение. Это то, что это наша новая инициатива. Это всего второй доклад, который мы официально называем Country Report, страновой отчет. Предыдущий был сделан совсем недавно. Этот, наверное, мы думаем, станет чуть-чуть более публичным, чем предыдущий. Также одна из базовых вещей – это то, что мы во всем докладе старались опираться только на свои собственные данные.
Oh, sorry, wrong channel. And this is the second report in the history of the organization that's dedicated to a country. And this report, we rely on our own data for this report, except for the user data in Russia. Since this is a new project for us, we are still in training, so to say. So we would really appreciate your feedback. What you like, what you don't like about this report. The hard copies are at the registration desk and also on the tables here in the room. You can download the report from the website. I mean, if you have any comments, anything that you would like to share with us on this report, you can contact me or anyone of my colleagues. Let's look at the main highlights of this report. Russia is in the third place in terms of the number of LIRs registered with us. At the moment, there are already more than 2,030 LIRs. The data that you see on the slide is slightly outdated. So in just a couple of months, we added more than 100 new accounts. We have seen a dramatic increase in the registrations of accounts in 2018, probably. This is due to the exhaustion of the IPv4 pool, and our clients probably wanted to open up their accounts with us to get final allocations. That's why Chris mentioned in his presentation that in the region and in Russia in particular, we expect that in the future there will be a slight decrease in the number of LIR accounts. It doesn't mean that the market would shrink. It means that some LIR accounts will be consolidated. But this is a European trend in any case. Overall, 45.5 million IPv4 addresses are allocated in Russia. 15 years ago, we held our first event in Moscow. We've just celebrated 25 years anniversary of .ru, and from 1995, this is when we first started gaining the Russian LIR accounts. Rosneft was the first one. Germany and the UK, the two biggest economies of Europe in terms of number of addresses, their numbers are greater, but you have to understand that they started getting their addresses much earlier than Russia. In 1995, we only had one LIR, Rosneft, but the LIRs in Germany and in the UK started getting their addresses sooner. Transfers. The Russian transfer market is one of the biggest, at least in our region, and I don't know how well you can see from those screens, but I show you in the printed version. You will be able to read this graph very clearly, distinctly. To the left, you see the list of countries who are sources of IPv4 addresses for Russia. To the left are the countries from which the addresses came to Russia, and the biggest donor of Russian addresses is Russia, which is probably not surprising. There is a big domestic transfer market, and there are several conclusions that follow out of this. 2/3 of all transferred addresses stayed in the country and did not go outside of the Russian borders. IPv6, much was said about IPv6 today already. Here on this map, the darkest color identifies the countries that are leaders with IPv6 adoption. We have already talked about the way things stand with IPv6 in Russia. 3/4 of Russian LIRs have already received allocations of IPv6 from RIPE NCC. Maybe it happened because for a while to be allocated an IPv4 block, we demanded that an LIR would also get an IPv6 block. Maybe many of these IPv6s are not yet being used, but at least they have already been allocated. We reviewed 300 websites that are most clicked in Russia. Only 10 of them have native IPv6 support. They installed it themselves, and 15 of them get IPv6 connectivity via Cloudflare. And the rest of them are not available for IPv6. And a couple of words about the Russian autonomous systems. How do you read these charts? You may think that the number of LIRs and the internet audience is the same in all the countries, but in Russia there are 3 times more ASs than in the UK or in Germany. We don't know how to explain that. Maybe it's due to the size of the country, the sheer size. And as the internet gradually developed, a lot of small, say, last-mile companies popped up across the country, and now we understand that many of them were consolidated by the biggest service providers, but ASs are still very active, and they are still online. On this slide, we try to explain the connectivity between the biggest autonomous systems. We couldn't get the information for some ASs, like Wimbledon, but what you have to understand from this chart is that the more there are lines, the better. It means that connectivity is strong. In the report itself, you'll be able to read more about each of these graphs and charts. Unfortunately, right now, we do not have the time to go into details. Another thing, we try to measure how traffic reaches Russia. We measured it from 2 locations, from Frankfurt and Sao Paulo, Germany and Brazil. And what we see here, actually, the first entry point for the country is the 10, say, a dozen or 10 top ASs. But international connectivity is supported by 1,000 other ASs. So we all understand that the packets in the internet travel in a fashion when one route is not available, another route is engaged. It will be the more optimal or just the more available route. So it's very important for the connectivity inside the country and connectivity outside of the country to have as many of those paths as possible. Well, not as many, but a lot. And Russia is a good example of a country where we have a lot of paths. We also try to. Russia announces 350. Russia announces 32,000 IP prefixes, and we identified 350,000 routes between 2 Russian points. There is a foreign autonomous network. And there can be different reasons for it, and very often traffic never goes outside of the country. What could happen is that a foreign network, which is represented in Russia, which has Russian infrastructure, but it is registered as a foreign AS. We would attribute it as a foreign, as an international AS, but physically it is in Russia, and that's why traffic doesn't leave Russian borders. Although there are indeed cases when Russia exchanges traffic with a foreign destination, like Frankfurt, for instance, it's not a mistake, it's nothing wrong, it's just the 2 businesses decided that for some reason it is better for them, more efficient for them to do it that way. And we are also operators of K-Route, as you have already been made aware. It's one of the 13 route servers. In Russia, there are 3 mirrors. In Novosibirsk, MSKX, Selectel also has another one. Selectel is somewhere in the room. And the third one is in Moscow. So what we try to measure with those mirrors is how our probes, and there are about 500 measurement devices in Russia, which is little, and we would love to see more probes in Russia. So we try to see which of the cave routes is accessed depending on which conditions. The European mirrors are shown here in blue, which means Moscow, St. Petersburg, or Sofia servicing those requests. And the bigger the circle, the bubble on this map, the longer it takes to get the response. You can see the bright red dot here. This is Montevideo. For some reason, that dot talks to the Montevideo cave route. I can't explain. I don't know why this is happening, but if the latency is acceptable, well, in any case, if the response time is longer than is valid, then this query will be channeled to another mirror of the cave route, and in any case, the response will be given. We ask everyone, we invite everyone to host cave routes, and we see it in Moscow, we see it in the country. Even if we have more instances of cave route, we'll not be able to improve even further on the already excellent state of affairs. The findings of this report is that, first of all, the Russian market is quite healthy in terms of accounts, in terms of transfers, in terms of address space available. Many of these transfers result in the fact that the resources stay in the country. There is good internal and international connectivity. The internet was developing freely, with enough freedom, and there are many regional, not very big operators, and all of them are connected with each other. If the traffic goes from Russia to Russia, mostly this traffic stays in the country, and in the cases when we see a loop, it doesn't necessarily mean that the traffic leaves the country, and if it does leave the country, it doesn't mean that it should be fixed. Maybe it was a conscientious choice. And for the operator, maybe it is a better option, because we all understand that longer distances are not efficient for any operator. So an operator should have like solid reasons to do it. IPv6, we would love to see a high adoption rate, but okay, we all go at our own pace, and we welcome the changes that we've seen recently in terms of IPv6. And like I said, there are 3 K-root instances in Russia. You can get them free. We can host another one on your infrastructure. You only have to comply with our technical requirements to do it. Thank you very much for your attention. The reports are available. Please read them and please comment them. Talk to us. Give us your feedback. Thanks. A quick question. On page 8, our telecom is shown in blue color. It means it's a foreign entity in your nomenclature. Well, good question. Not sure. Yes, okay. Thanks for this feedback. Yes, thank you very much for your feedback. Probably it's a typo, and we'll just have to fix it. And since we intend to repeat this exercise in the future, the higher is the acceptance rate, the greater are the chances that we'll publish another report on Russia. I just wanted to warn you that this document is, well, it's not like, again, it's something that's set in stone. If you think that we can measure something else, if you think of other things that we can analyze with the data that's available, I mean, your ideas will be analyzed. Your ideas will be taken into account. Don't be shy. There is other data, the data that we did not incorporate into this report for various reasons. We try to keep this report concise. That's why this other data, we will try to bring it to you in any case. Later today, there will be Alexei's presentation on connectivity between cities using RIPE Atlas. I'm from the Internet Protection Society. My name is Alexander. I wanted to go back to the discussion that we had before. On this graph, gray shows no probes. And when you look at this graph and you say that the connectivity, domestic connectivity is not very good, did I say that the domestic connectivity was not good? I said it was excellent. Okay. And the same goes to attributing traffic to foreign destinations. 9002 is a company that was originally Russian, but now this autonomous system is attributed not as being Russian. Yes, the report mentions that. We write about it in the report. Well, sometimes it's better to keep silent. This is included into the report. That particular autonomous system is mentioned separately in the report. Okay, is this secret information? Is that what you're trying to say, that we shouldn't publish it? That we should have kept silent on it? Okay, anyway, colleagues, I see no one else at the microphone. Maybe it means that there are no further... Well, we have a question. 2 questions. I too have something. What about TTK? TTK? Where is this company? Not all of the data that we have is included into this report. Like I said, and yes, some of the data is not shown. Hi, I have a question, and maybe it's not relevant for this presentation in particular. There are LIRs that have addresses that they received before 2012. And if there is a shortage of IPv4, why don't you take these addresses back from the LIRs that haven't been using them since 2012? Well, there is a simple answer to your question, and probably you can guess what the answer is. RIPE NCC complies with the decisions or executes the decisions taken by the community. We, the organization, we act on the decisions of the community. You are a member of the community. You can be a member of RIPE NCC or not be a member of RIPE NCC, but you are a member of the community. We don't have a policy at the moment of this kind of redistribution of addresses. Therefore, RIPE NCC cannot take certain addresses away from the rightful holders. Maybe there will be other members of the RIPE community, especially the ones who've been holding those addresses since 2012 and not using them. That particular member will argue with your proposition. But Chris spoke about the procedure that we have, the RIPE Policy Development Group. It's very important that you are active in those discussions. Okay, why a ticket is raised by a RIPE member? Eventually, RIPE moderators, lose the ticket. I'm not sure I understand what you mean. The ticket is you didn't get an answer or what? So RIPE member wants to discuss an issue, wants to have a public discussion of an issue. Then RIPE moderators, if they think that this issue is not very good for RIPE, they tend to. When you say a RIPE member wants to make it public, member discuss. Do we have moderation that member discuss?
So a quick answer. If you want to change a policy or create a new proposal, I know it can be hard. It's a tricky thing to do. It's complex. So the easiest suggestion is we have a policy development officer, PDP it's called. Marco Schmidt is doing that. And one of the jobs that he has is basically helping community members to come up with policies. So if you have an idea, just drop a line to pdp@ripe.net or Marco at ripe.net. and he can basically support you with how to write a policy and what is the process. But of course, if the community really rejects an idea, there is nothing that anyone can do. It's basically up to the consensus of the greater community to decide if an idea should go through or not.
Но смотрите, если у вас вопрос по конкретному,
If you are asking about a specific ticket, because what I heard you, well, you didn't speak about a general discussion on some mailing list, but there is a service desk. We've got Ekaterina. She speaks Russian at the service desk. You can work with her on your ticket. If you have not received an answer from Ekaterina, well, I don't know. I've never had cases like this in the past. And at members discussed, there are no RIPE NCC moderators. I thought that maybe you could have misinterpreted what I said before. Members discussed this mailing list is not moderated. If someone disagrees with you, it's not a RIPE NCC official. It will be another member of the community. And this is something typical, by the way. I do apologize for taking so long, but I am in touch with the community all the time. And it's very typical of the Russian community to have this attitude. I have this ingenious idea, and I was told to go and get lost. What's wrong with you, RIPE NCC? So you have to be ready for your idea to be rejected by other members of the community. Even if you believe in your idea yourself, if you think it's perfect, I've seen many cases like this. Something that seems brilliant, there would definitely be someone, I don't know, from France, some very boring ass, you know, who will say, no, I disagree. So it is. You have to come to an agreement with 20,000. Okay, not 20,000, but you have to come to an agreement with a long list of active members. Some of them are boring people, some of them are nasty people, but you have to learn to come to an agreement. I know, maybe it's not in our habit. It's something that we don't have the skill. Like our skill is to come to an agreement with some guy at the top, but not with a big community. Another thing, when you talk to someone on the mailing list, you talk to your peers, you talk to your colleagues, you're not talking to RIPE NCC. Address policy VG group. Is this, they are your peers, your colleagues, this is someone who kills every discussion. This is a working group of the RIPE community. Remember what Christopher said? He said that there is RIPE NCC and there is the RIPE community. And Hans-Peter Kohl is the chair, and the RIPE community is organized as working groups, and every working group has its own chair, who is not a RIPE NCC official, who is not employed by RIPE NCC. And working groups, they are not made up of LIRs. They are individuals. They are people representing themselves. The RIPE community consists of individuals without associations, and they, among themselves, elect a person, two persons, a chair and a vice chair. And they may be the ones who will write on the mailing list, hey guys, let's kill this idea or something. But RIPE NCC has nothing to do with this. And the mailing list will vote, the working group will vote. But if you want to, you can be